I was knocked onto the floor. I didn't know what was happening. I went like this, and teeth came out my mouth.
Oh, man.
And then I could feel this blood and all from my mouth, and my top lip was hanging off my face. So seemingly at that moment in time, I thought that's the end of trumpet playing for me.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Louis Dowdeswell podcast. Today's guest is one of the most respected trumpet players in the UK, a musician whose sound has defined countless big bands, film scores and concert stages, the incredible Mike Lovatt. If you've listened to any great British big band, film score, West End show or symphonic project in the last few decades, you've probably heard Mike's sound. He's played it all, and always with his heart. But this episode isn't just about credentials, it's about resilience. At 14 years old, Mike was hit by a car while cycling, his teeth were knocked out, his lip was torn open, and in that moment he thought trumpet playing was over. Yet just 6 weeks later, with no teeth, he stood on stage at his dad's school concert and played again. That comeback has shaped his entire career and his philosophy that every note matters, every note has a soul, and that you play like your life depends on it. In our conversation, we dive into that story, his motivations, the seasons of a long career, and the wisdom he's passing on through his own projects today. You'll hear about working with Jesse Norman, leading in John Wilson's Orchestra, and how Mike is inspiring the next generation through his brass pack ensemble. I'm so excited to share this one with you. Let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Mike Lovatt. Thank you for having me, Mike.
Great, nice to see you. Great to see you here.
Yeah, Mike is an ex-mentor teacher of mine, and we've worked together tons and tons in the UK music scene, commercial scene, and if you go check out Mike on YouTube or anywhere, you will find that he has been involved in pretty much everything in the British scene that there is. So I'm very, very grateful to be here, and we're in, again, a little bit like it was in John Thurkel's session last time. Tons and tons of cool accolades all over the walls. You've got all this free advertising and whatnot in the video. But yeah, it's a beautiful spirit again to be in. And thanks for having me, Mike.
It's great. It's nice of you to come and chat to me.
Yeah.
This Michael Nyman band, the reason that's up on there is because just there playing the violin is Anne, my wife.
Oh yeah.
And that's the very tour that we met on. And you can probably just about make out Steve Sidwell on the trumpet at the back.
No way.
And he was the trumpet player in that band. And it was a 3-week trip to Japan. And Steve said, I can't do the trip to Japan. Do you want to debt for me? And I said, no, I've got work in London. I want to stay. You know?
Yeah.
And then I ended up going on this trip. And I met Anne. And the rest is history in that part of my life.
Isn't that amazing? That's great. Yeah. And now you've got this beautiful house. Last time I was in Mike's house, actually, the extension hadn't been done.
No.
So it's good to see it in its finished form. It's absolutely lovely.
Yeah, 14-year-old Louis Dowdeswell sitting somewhere over there before we had this big extension. Yeah. And I remember your mum saying, my son can play really high on the trumpet.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, it's great.
And now we're going to do Maggio, which is the polar opposite to playing high. Yeah. Exactly. Well, maybe we could start there. Maybe we could have a little chat about... we'll start off with trumpet chat, and then maybe it'll move to somewhere else, because I always like taking the guests into slightly more philosophical lands. But, trumpet. What's trumpet to you? Why do you play? Why do you teach? Where does your passion come from?
I think first and foremost it's the love of music, which was I was born into a musical family. My dad was a music teacher. He played almost every instrument in the orchestra. So in our house at home we had a trumpet, a trombone, a saxophone, a clarinet, a violin. We had everything. And so I used to, go to sleep at night as a baby even. My dad would be practicing the piano downstairs. So music was around me the whole time. My mum sang in an amateur way, but she's a good singer. And so I didn't think there was anything else in life other than music. Music was music all the time, And so one day I went shopping with my mum. I was about 8 years of age. And we went into the first supermarket in the town. And there was a big carousel with albums on by the doorway, funnily enough, in this new supermarket. What's this? A supermarket? Wow. And on one of the bits of the carousel was this album with the Oh Mine Papa trumpeter, Eddie Calvert.
Okay.
And it was this picture of lights, stage lights shining off the bell of this trumpet. And I just thought, this looks amazing. That looks great, I said to Mum, can I have that record? And so she bought the record. It was 99 pence. This was very early 70s. So decimalisation just started, 99p. And actually, one of my friends recently, Derek Lawton, said, your mum didn't realise the significance of spending 99p on that album, which, of course, that's what led to me wanting to play the trumpet. And so got home. We had one of these big radiograms, like a sideboard, and lifted the top of that up, put this record on. The record started, and I was like this, and then I ran into the cupboard to find this old Selma student trumpet, which my dad had, and I tried to play along. I didn't know what I was doing at all. I just tried to make a sound and play along straight away. It was that instant. And from that moment onwards, that's what I wanted to do. And so my dad said, well, okay, this is G, this is A, and that's away I went. And I was kind of self-taught at the beginning because of that. Eventually, I took lessons. I was at the primary school, but I used to go over. My dad was a head of music at the secondary school. I used to go over there, where he had a peripatetic teacher, who's still with us today. Ron Farger is his name, and I had lessons with him. So I would be about 10 when that was taking place.
Okay.
Imagine that happening now. Walking, like a couple of miles to my dad's school on my own.
Yeah.
And taking a trumpet lesson, but it was fine in those days.
Well, it's not the same.
No, so that was the next little stage, taking lessons with him. My dad started preparing me for all the grade exams. And then I reached the age of 14, and I was just about to take my grade 8 trumpet, and I was also a very keen cyclist, and I used to cycle for the county. I've got a really nice bike now, but I don't ride it because of various reasons, but accidents being the main thing. And Anne's a bit scared of me going out on a bike. And I am a tiny bit as well, because back in September 78, whenever it was, when I was 14, I came home from school. I'd either practice the trumpet or play along to a record in my bedroom, or I would go out on my bike. And it was still reasonably light evening, so I went out on my bike with a friend of mine. Got to a T-junction on a country lane, 9-foot high hedges either side. We're going to turn right. So my mate goes across and he starts going up the hill, but I can hear a car coming from my left. So I just stay at the T-junction waiting to go right. As the car's coming up and I catch sight of it, there's a flash from my right and a car's coming down the hill as well. They can't pass, so the car coming down the hill swerves and goes into me. I was knocked onto the floor. I didn't know what was happening. I went like this, and teeth came out my mouth.
Oh, man.
And then I could feel this blood and all from my mouth, and my top lip was hanging off my face. So seemingly at that moment in time, I thought that's the end of trumpet playing for me. And I was rushed to the hospital. Actually, the guy that was coming up the road, he took me home, because it was quicker than getting, no mobile phones, quicker than getting an ambulance to get there on this country lane. And the guy that knocked me off, who was a farmer, I think he'd been down the pub or something like that, he put my bike in his boot and eventually took it to the police station at 10 o'clock that evening. This was 6:30 in the evening. So whether or not that was the case, I don't know. But my dad then drove me over to the North Staffs Hospital, and they had me straight in and they stitched the lip back. There was a tiny bit missing, but they stitched it back. And the next day, I remember, I didn't sleep very well that night. I broke my clavicle as well. So I didn't sleep very well, but the next day I woke up and I could actually see my face. It was like out here. So I thought, that's it, trumpet playing's over. We had an electronic organ at home, so I used to, because my arm was in a sling, so I'd just play a bit of.
You're very good with the chords.
Yeah, I was good on the comping in the left hand on the bottom manual, and then we had a 1.5 octave pedal board, and I'd do the bass line with that, and I think I'd try and incorporate the melody with my left hand, with my thumb or something, to standards. So that was a way of playing music whilst that period happened. But of course I'd lost teeth as well. So my dad then he knew a dentist whose brother played the French horn. This is really weird, but it was the closest we could get to somebody who knew about brass playing and why teeth were important. And he said, yes, I think I'll be able to put a bridge in there, even though, because the implants weren't around then. So it was either dentures that he'd take out and put in a glass by the side of the bed at night, or Kenny Baker did very well, of course, on dentures. He had 2 sets, apparently. He had his playing set and his eating set.
Yeah.
I hope he got the right ones in when he was playing. So I then went for this interview to try and get a grant for the county to pay for the bridge, because it was a lot of money in those days as well. And so I then had another operation where they removed all the roots from the teeth of my bottom jaw, which was horrendous. That was in hospital. They were literally, there was a lady doctor, dental doctor, and she was drilling down to my jaw, because the roots on teeth at the bottom are really long. But the dentist said, look, if we take those out, then the chances are that you won't have any problems once the bridge is in, so we don't have to take the bridge out. Anyway, it's quite a few years later now, and that bridge is still in my mouth. So
wow.
I've had 41 years of playing the trumpet professionally on that bridge, but plus another 6 years on top of that.
So you were 14 when that happened.
Yeah.
When did you play the trumpet again?
It was about 6 weeks after that, with no teeth.
Wow.
After the lip was done, the teeth came later. This was in the September, so I started playing I know that by Christmas I was playing the Davy Wilcox Descants in my dad's carol concert at school.
Wow.
So
that's cool.
I don't know how I did it. I mean, I've got undercut jaw anyway, so I don't know how I supported my embouchure really. But
I do wonder. It's an interesting question. There's a trumpet player called Josh Elcock. I don't know if you know Josh.
I know him, yeah.
So Josh, and he may have talked to you about this, I'm not sure, but I want to get Josh on podcast at some point. He's a really good trumpet player, great trumpet player in London. And I met him up in Scotland when he was studying there. And he had his teeth overlapped a little bit on the front.
Yeah.
And for anyone that listens to this podcast, it doesn't have to be a trumpet player. Obviously, if you're ramming a piece of metal on your face, the more pressure you put on, the more likely it is you're going to cut the inside of the lip. I think Josh was really struggling with this for a long time, so much so that he made the terrifying decision to get braces, as a professional. Like that's a bold move.
Serious, yeah.
It takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And I saw him quite recently, and he said that pretty much it's only been a win, And so it was an amazing story, and I thought, well, it would be worth having him in. But the reason I mention it is because it made me question, like, obviously when, we'll use that language, but like when you can see your face, i.e. your lip is kind of hanging off and you've got no teeth, and you make the decision at that point in your head that you're not going to play again, obviously something stops you from thinking that because you still play. But then also, this was a decision that was taken away from you. I'm sure there have been many opportunities to correct certain things in your mouth since. Like, why haven't you done that? Or maybe you have, I don't know. But why haven't you chosen to do that? And is it mainly to do with why, like as a player, how important the teeth are and the way they are? Once you'd learn to play the way you learn to play, you kind of have to deal with it. I'm the same. I have braces. I got like a removable brace when I was about 15, and it started messing my playing up. And I just said, I'm not doing this anymore. And so I have, a little messed up, crowded top teeth, and that's fine. Just something I have to deal with.
Well, that's a really good question. It's a really good point that you've just made about, nowadays we do have the option to correct stuff. People have said to me in the past, why haven't you had implants put in?
Yeah.
But the simple reason for that is that I was already working professionally and I couldn't afford to take the time off to have it done. But I remember distinctly that I went back for a checkup with the surgeon on my lip, for instance, about 3 months after the accident. And at that point he said to me, look, we'd like to get you back in and we'll make the lip look a bit better than it does already. It looks different now because it's had quite a few years of trumpet playing on it. But
pounding,
he said, we can do that for you. And I just went, no, thank you. I can play that. I can make a sound on the trumpet. So I thought that if I can make a sound, then I've got something to build on with that. And I'll just get used. That's going to be my new norm. Yeah. And I don't know, I can see my teeth. You can see my teeth. My top teeth are terrible.
Right.
And my bottom teeth are as a bridge from there to there. So I learnt to play the trumpet really, again, from that moment. And, that was a kind of defining moment in my life, really, because it's made me always think to myself, you're not going to be beaten by this.
Okay, yeah.
It's like, last year I had an operation on my wrist and, a tendon had snapped to my thumb and the first finger tendon was about to go as well. And I met this amazing surgeon and he did that. That was like the second time in my life where somebody was trying to tell me, stop blowing down this lump of brass, or trying to try me out and see, do you really want to do this? And I think, age 14, it was like, okay, I might never play the trumpet player. I might make another trumpet player again, never make a trumpet player again. But it was like, no, you will. You're going to do it. That was in my head the whole time. And, eventually when I went to college, I finished college and Bobby Lamb, fantastic Bobby Lamb, he was a great mentor to me and lots of other people, Mark Nightingale, Adrian Revel, Pat Hartley, the list goes on of all the players that went to Trinity and played in Bobby's big band. And Bobby said to me, he said, I've heard that you're not doing much and you're going to maybe do a teacher training course and just go into classroom teaching. I said, yeah, I think, I it's not happening for me. I think that's what I'm going to do. He said, well, I want to meet up with you in London for a drink. I said, okay. When? He said, the reason I want to meet up with you is because I'm going to punch you in the face so you'd never play again. And I thought, like, why is he saying that? And then I thought, I know why he's saying it, because he wants me to think, like, what would it be like if I couldn't play the trumpet? And that was another, like, right, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And I'm going to prove that I can do it. Because especially in those days, I was, whilst I was at college, I was playing with the BBC Symphony Orchestra as an extra, and I was working professionally. But it was like all the jazz people thought I was a classical player, and all the classical people thought I was a jazz player.
Yeah.
So I was in this no man's land. And at that point, it was like, okay, I'm going to show you that I can do this. And that was really when, my quest for something that you've done brilliantly right from when you were a little lad is, get the range and the sound and all that kind of stuff. Because when I was 14, just about to do my grade 8, before the accident, I used to play along to Kenny Baker, play up to top G's in my bedroom, and I didn't think anything of it. And I didn't think that was anything special. That's something I could do. After the accident, I could get an ordinary high C out, and that was it. That was your lot.
Yeah. I'm going to take you back to the conversation about motivation, because I think I know where you're going to go with this, and I want to go. We'll come back to the conversation on how you got your chops back together, basically. I definitely want to go there. But you mentioned something about motivation. You mentioned that you needed to prove to yourself and others, or just yourself, that you were going to do this, that you were going to play. When skipping forwards a little bit here, just to keep on the subject, in the multiple seasons of Mike Lovatt's career, when did your motivation ever change from that If so, what did it change to? When did it change, and why did it change? And if it never changed, then do you still get the same satisfaction out of having had a career? If you see, like, if you weren't going to be beaten, you weren't beaten.
Yeah.
So once that quest is completed, because I believe it to have been completed, but only you know if it's completed. If you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What would be next for Mike's motivations? Like, what does he use the trumpet for now?
Okay, there's a lot of questions there, but I'll try and answer them all. The motivation is as big now as it ever has been, and I find myself saying this to a lot of people in this day and age, because nowadays there's a whole load of amazing late 20s, early 30s trumpet players in all genres of music. You've got the principal trumpets of symphony orchestras, like the James Fountain and the LSO, and all these guys who have got to the very top in an early part of their life. Now, okay, I'd like to think that I'm somewhere at the top of my career, and I've probably been there for maybe the last 10 years or something, but I don't really perceive that I am. Okay. I still want to get better. Okay, so recently I've been playing lead trumpet on the Great Gatsby show in London. Now, it's a show, and it's it's beautifully paid and all that. But you've done shows. You know what it's like sitting we sit in this thing called the potting shed, which is like I call it the potting shed. It's a shed in that amazing London Coliseum, which has got an incredible acoustic, but they put us in this little shed. This room's bigger than the space we're in within the pit, and it's really hard. So motivation there is real key for me. And I sit in there, and we wear full cans, and I play, and I think, this sounds terrible. But I'm still trying every single night. Someone said to somebody the other night, it doesn't matter. I go and do that show. I still try and play it the best I can every single night. I'm still motivated to do that.
Yeah.
It's coming off in a couple of weeks, and I'm quite looking forward to that. But the motivation for playing wherever I am is still paramount. And it doesn't matter whether it's playing in a West End show, or playing a gig with the BBC Big Band, or going into Abbey Road and doing a session or something like that. Like you are as well, we all try and play the best we can, or at least that's what we should do. And we all always should put something into it. There's a lot of people that play the trumpet, and sometimes I think, why are you doing this? Because you don't play like you mean it. And by that might sound a bit cutting, but there's people who can really play the trumpet, but they're not playing for the right reasons, which is...
What are your reasons for playing then?
To communicate.
Okay, yeah.
Now, you can see that I chat a lot.
That's good.
And I speak a lot. But
It's great for a podcast host.
I'm always trying to make something of what I'm playing, even if it was the Birdie song or something. I'm trying to make something of it. For me, first of all. But actually, especially on a gig, it's for the people that are paid money to go and hear you play. Yep. And I've been fortunate to do quite a few things where I've got to know, there's been like a regular clientele that specifically come to sort of to hear me, which is, thank you very much. It's, that's like an amazing accolade that people actually want to come and hear you play. And so I owe it to them, but not only to them, but to everybody else. And if I can connect with one person, Matt Ford, great singer, he always said to me, when I'm singing, I try and kind of choose somebody, and I don't like sing to them. But really, you're singing to everybody. It's the same with the trumpet. You've
like
got
a soul
your
connection,
friends,
right?
People come to hear you. They want to hear you. They want to hear you play live. And if you don't give it to them, if you just go through the motions, they'll know.
Oh yeah.
They'll know. There was a teacher, I don't know who this lady was. She's an American teacher. And I saw this thing that she was talking about online. And one of her students she'd prepared for a final exam. and they were playing, I don't know what piece it was, a concerto or something. And she went along to their recital, and she thought, oh, it's really good. And then about halfway through the recital, she kind of lost interest in what she was listening to, and she was just checking the time or whatever on a mobile phone or something like that. And she never sort of was drawn back to the recital. And after the recital, she met up with the student and said, how did you think it went? And they said, well, the first bit, I felt really good. I was really into it. But then I kind of lost my head about halfway through. And it was interesting that where they lost their head and their purpose of what they were doing, what they were playing, she lost concentration in what she was listening to. So that kind of is an illustration of what I'm saying.
My wife came to watch, when was it? My wife's an opera singer. I don't know if I've mentioned that on the podcast before, but so they're trained in this. But they're also, I wasn't trained as an opera singer, but they're also trained in acting, obviously. And we all know that the best actors are the ones that feel it.
Yeah.
And I think it must have been around 2016 or 2017. I got a random call out in the middle of nowhere to put together a gig at Ronnie Scott's with Patty Austin and put together the band. I was very young at the time. I think it came through Gordon Goodwin. Patty had a new album and needed a band in London to do this.
Oh, was it like the Ella? Did she do an Ella thing?
I think it was.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it was an unbelievable few gigs. We loved it. But Millie came to watch it, and she said, I've never been in the presence of a person where I haven't been able to take my eyes off them for 2 hours.
Exactly.
None of it's forced.
Yeah.
She just said it was just the most incredible. And this is something I wasn't even really receptive of when I was that age. And Millie's always been very mature and able to be receptive to that spirit, being in that environment. And she always talks about that gig whenever she has a thing where she has to keep the attention of the audience. Now, it's not trying to steal the attention of the audience, which just seems like today's day and age, everything is about giving you a quick dopamine hit for a hook.
Instant.
Maybe even the hook at the beginning of this podcast. But something instant. But Millie was saying it was more that she was able to draw out the attention and never lose it.
Yeah.
Just because it was clear that Patty was there.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, not Patty wasn't somewhere else in her mind, you know, so...
Well,
yeah, that's amazing.
That was something, actually, you just mentioned that Millie's an opera singer. I was very fortunate to work with one of the greatest opera singers of all time. That's Jessie Norman, who it kind of came about as a kind of second-hand gig, really, from Guy Barker, who at the time was doing a play with Eddie Izzard. And it involved like a bebop jazz ensemble, and Guy was doing that. So he couldn't do this gig, which was a big band gig with Jessie Norman, but playing the sacred music, the sacred Ellington sacred concerts. And so Guy, at that time, I was playing with Pete Long and the Echoes of Ellington band, and I was doing a lot of Cootie Williams type plunger work. And so Guy'd heard me do that, and he put me forward to do this gig. And it was at the Barbican Centre, and it was a big band, lots of great players in it, but there was Grady Tate on drums. There was a guy, Jessie Norman's pianist called Mark Markham, was a classical pianist, but incredible piano player. And there was Ron Carter on bass, great Ron Carter. So I played the Shepherd, which is that big Cootie Williams, you know, the Shepherd, follow the Shepherd with his crook. And I played that. And at the end of the gig, Jessie was given this bouquet of roses, and she walked up to the back of the stage and pulled one of the roses out and gave it to me.
Oh, that's nice.
And from that moment, like a week later, I got this call from New York, and this is so-and-so, I'm Jessie Norman's manager, and she'd like you to accompany her on a European tour. So from that moment onwards, that started 15 years of association with Jessie Norman, and we did quite a few gigs. Mainly in Europe, although I did do one, and we went to New York and we played in St. John the Divine in Harlem,
wow,
which is where Ellington's funeral was, I think. And also, he did one of the sacred concerts there. Of course, Westminster Cathedral, he did one in London as well. But whilst I'm talking about Jessie Norman, the main reason I'm mentioning her now is because she had that thing of she wanted to connect with the audience so much. And she just had that ability that when somebody walks out on a stage, before she even opened her mouth to sing, the audience were on her. They were connected with her completely. And there's two things else that I learned from that, is that when you walk out on stage, you do lots of solo gigs, and I've seen you always look great when you walk out. You're open to people, and you can be nervous, but you still like that. And if you walk on stage and you're like this, and you're looking a bit tense, and you've lost straight away.
Yeah.
Whereas if you walk on stage, look at Maynard Ferguson.
Oh, the greatest.
Yeah.
Doc Severinsen.
Doc Severinsen. Yeah, they. You can call it showmanship, but actually, it's just connection. It's just it's letting your heart out to people.
It's actually humility. It's strange. It can come across as pride as well, but I think, I think that as a professional musician or professional musicians can maybe get blind to that spirit.
Yeah.
Because part of the reason is that sometimes resentment can be fostered when it's almost always the professionals that are sitting behind the person that's in the front. And there are two sides to being a musician. There's playing, and then there's I don't want to reduce it to presentation. That's way too much of a reduction. It's like it's spirit. It's
spirit.
It's hard to be receptive to that as a professional sometimes.
Yeah.
And I use the word professional not for standard's sake. I mean because it's your job.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got to. My favourite players really of the American studio players of the 50s, which I'm sure you and maybe some of the listeners would count on the fact that I would mention this about those guys, because they're all my heroes, and not just Conrad Gozzo, and not just Johan Raisi. There were so many of them, Johnny Best, Manny Klein, Shorty Sherrock. There's loads of them. Candolis and all the rest of it. But those guys were going into the studio day after day after day after day. Okay, they were playing music which had been really crafted and was great to play for amazing artists like Nat King Cole or Ella Fitzgerald or Sinatra, or whoever it was of the day. But every single time, it sounds like, to me, they played like their lives depended on it.
Yeah.
And by that, I don't mean like playing loud and thrashing it out, but they played with heart and soul.
Yeah.
And that brings me to something that I know that you and Raisi, and I asked him about this. I was lucky enough to chat to him once. He said, when you're playing, think of the soul of every note that you play. He said a few fantastic gems, actually. Think of the soul. Roar softly was another one.
Love that.
Which I really liked. And he also said, think of every note as a prayer.
Yeah.
Which is, and when you hear him play, that's what you hear. I've just come across this Andre Previn score for a film called Two for the Seesaw. And it's got Robert Mitchum and who else? Shirley MacLaine's in it as well. And the music is fantastic. It's written by Previn. And there's a tune in there, the Two for the Seesaw theme, and it's played by Johan Raisi. And there's Ronnie Lang on alto sax, and there's also Dick Nash on trombone. It's absolutely sublime, and anybody that hasn't checked it out, it's on YouTube. That particular track, have a listen to it, and you will hear what I've just been talking about in Johan Raisi's playing. So we're coming back to that original question that you asked about motivation. That is what now in 2025 still motivates me, and I think to myself, you're rubbish. You haven't got there.
Yeah.
Keep on trying to do it.
Yeah.
Now,
That's amazing.
You know, and I could sit here and be bitter about things, and you know, sometimes there are things that upset me about how the career's changed and how the business has changed, really. But you know, if I hope that this doesn't happen, but if by 2026 I can't play the trumpet anymore, you know, if this bridge finally falls out, well, maybe that won't be the end. Maybe I'll try even harder and get something else put in my mouth. I'm not going to be stopped doing what I want to do, and that is all tied in with this motivation and my reason for really playing the trumpet. And I can honestly say this to you, Louis, that I love playing that thing as much as I did when I was 8.
Wow. That's cool.
And you know, sometimes I play duff music. Well, we all do.
Yeah.
You know, we have to make a living. I've been very lucky. I've played some really fantastic music, and I've played some real crap music as well.
Yeah. I have a question for you then. I asked some people in my trumpet academy just the other day, where I put a poll out. I was quite surprised by the results. I think I know what the answer is going to be for you, but you might surprise me. There's no right answer, and I don't think either answer is. There's one answer that might seem more mature, but I don't necessarily think it's right. If we reduce trumpet playing down to the core mechanics of doing it, a little bit like the act of playing soccer or football, right? Like the actual act of doing that, going out, playing with your friends, kicking a ball, physically kicking a ball, and working on kicking the ball as well as you possibly can. You could talk about it with golf. Do you like the golf swing? Are you interested in the mechanics of that? Or are you more interested in the game of golf? And the way I would frame the question to you would be, do you prefer the trumpet or music?
Okay. I think I prefer music.
Okay.
And obviously the trumpet is my vehicle.
Yeah.
So, you know, that
there's some people that really like the trumpet, and that's great.
Yeah.
It's just a different...
I mean, you know, in that cupboard over there, I still have CDs. I'm kind of old-fashioned like that. And I've got vinyl as well. But I listen to so many different types of music. And if you look through my CD collection, there are trumpet players there. Of course there are, you know, loads of trumpet players. But there's so much more than that in there. You know,
in that cupboard in there, whether there was trumpet on it or not, what would be the gig that you would most want to do, have been involved with, that is in that cupboard? Or session?
Okay, it would be, I would have loved to have been first trumpet at MGM or second trumpet next to Johan Raisi. That would have been my
Can you spot an album, one album that comes to mind that you would just...
Well, I would say really there's something like the soundtrack to Singing in the Rain. Okay. Not because of the obvious song, but Moses Supposes, which is, you listen to Johan Raisi on that, you hear him doing that roaring softly, or roaring kind of, he always managed to keep a lid on it. It was never like, like that, but it was like that because of the vibe and this soul in every note that he played. No note sounded dead. You know, I mean, listen to him play something like that Chinatown theme as well.
Yeah.
And that's got that sound. There's a nice story that's attached to that, actually. 1974 was when that was recorded. And Ewan had a holiday just before this, and you know, he worked with Jerry Goldsmith a lot, and Jerry was doing the score. And so Ewan gets to the session early, sits himself on fourth trumpet, because he'd been on holiday, thought, you know, my chops aren't maybe where they should be for this. I doubt that very much, but that's what he did. Anyway, of course, Jerry knew that he'd been on holiday, so when the parts were handed out, all the trumpet solos were on the fourth trumpet part, because he knew that's what he would do.
Wow.
That's how he ended up playing that solo, which is incredible.
Wow. No, that's amazing. Well, let's spin back to slightly more trumpet related things. And talk about post-accident and how you got your chops back, and at the time that you got your chop. I guess, let's go at it from this angle. So, like, how did you actually get good at the trumpet? And would you say that in a slightly strange way that you're almost grateful almost for the accident? Does that make sense when I ask that question?
It does make sense because, as I said earlier, it was a life-changing moment in more ways than one, because it did.
You might not even be playing the trumpet now if you hadn't had the accident.
That might be very true.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? And I did this thing where, as I've already said, about playing along with stuff in my bedroom, playing along with records. And that's kind of what made me practice.
Yeah.
It wasn't practice, really. It was practicing my ear. But I didn't get, even though I got these problems with my embouchure post-accident, I didn't dwell on, like, now how am I going to actually do this? I thought the only way I could do it was by playing lots. So I used to stick on my, Sid Lawrence double album, which I bought. My parents took me to hear the Sid Lawrence band this is before the accident. And I said, right, that's what I want to do. I want to play in that band. And, eventually I was lucky enough to do that for a short period of time. But I used to play along, and with that double album, I didn't have any of the music. I was doing it all by ear. You used to do this when you used to play along with all those amazing things you did with Wayne. And the great thing about that for you as well, and you were innovative with this really, was that you were able to put it out there so people could hear what you were doing, and you could actually get some feedback on it.
Yeah,
and
I didn't even know that was what was happening.
No.
Actually, I don't think I've mentioned this on a podcast yet, but it's interesting you'd say that, because I think it must have been 2010, and I just met Simon Gardner at Nijo, and he was taking a rehearsal or two. His son Tom was playing with me, and I put these videos up of me playing along with Wayne and Maynard, and I released it on Facebook, and Simon said, "Oh, you should put that on YouTube." And kind of with that authority,
that's what
I did
it.
it.
Yeah.
And then one thing led to another. But you're right. The platform was available.
Yeah, and what did that lead to? How fantastic your great friendship with Wayne, and how he's kind of taken you under his wing, and he's been very generous with you, and it's been fantastic. And you were kind of the first person that utilised that amazing platform. And still are, and taking it further. You're an innovator.
Maybe a little hiatus at the moment, just talking to people. But
well, no, but
trumpet's coming back.
It's still to do with your craft, and that's brilliant. Coming back to what we were talking about. So playing in my bedroom at home, along to all my different records. But there's still one down there, the Phase 4 World of Kenny Baker. I used to play that. I've now got one over there by my monitor screen. I've got a Kenny Baker signature mouthpiece. Have you ever seen one of those? I'll show you after. Very interesting. Quite a deep mouthpiece where they all played on those cushion rims.
Yeah.
Not that. Anyway, I used to play along with Kenny, and he became my hero. And eventually, it's another kind of dream come true. I got to play next to him on numerous occasions, and wow, I'm almost tearing up with the sound. I can remember his sound, just the sound. And that part of playing along with stuff, listening to it, trying to copy, trying to emulate, trying to be, Louis Dowswell, trying to play like Wayne Bergeron. Eventually, you become your own person. Of course you do.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to sound like Wayne. Nobody's going to sound like Kenny. Nobody's going to sound like anyone else, hopefully, but yourself. You're going to have influences in there. I hear you play, and I know it immediately. That's Louis Dowswell. You've got your thing going, and hopefully that's the same. I've managed to do that as well, yes. But that side of learning the trumpet orally, I did harmony, four-part harmony at school with my dad teaching me, and he'd go, right, here you go, son. Here's an alto part. Write this chorale, and he'd say, don't go near the piano. just write it, and I'd write it, and I'd take it to him, and he'd have a look at it, and he'd say, okay, sing me the tenor part. And then once I'd sung all the different parts, he said, right, now go to the piano. So music was always about ears to me.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm just saying this right now, I'm not a jazz trumpet player, but I can play a bit of jazz.
Yeah.
I can get around jazz to a certain degree. I know what chords are and all that kind of stuff, but it's all done orally. I've not studied it at all.
Yeah.
You know, people have come to me.
That's a whole lifetime's worth of commitment in of itself, you know?
Yeah.
I think that conversation on learning things already, you know, harken back to the Trumpet Academy again, I've had to do a lot of thinking about how to help, you know, around 150 people who are all different standards and all different ages and all different intentions and all different desires.
Yeah.
With some kind of blanket advice. And I find myself thinking back to how I learned, speaking to people like yourself and Simon and Wayne, and it always comes back to a position on what you're actually hearing in your head. And I don't know whether this is something you've ever thought about. It's probably do it on autopilot, but you may have some extra wisdom for me here. I don't know. But I realised that a lot of people didn't necessarily have their North Star really set up for them, like what they're aiming at as a player. Because I think we forget, and also Spotify and YouTube, it kind of grays the North Star because there's so much to look at now.
Yeah.
It's a little easier for you in a weird way because you were given a CD and you went, well, I love that.
Exactly.
Done.
Exactly.
And then you have a very clear aim.
Yeah.
You put that in your head and you just try and play it. And the clearer the sound of Kenny Baker gets in your head, the clearer instruction you give your body to do what it needs to do to get there.
Yeah.
But if you're kind of skimming the surface, I'll listen to, you know, one solo of Kenny Baker and then I'll go and listen to a bit of Arturo Sandoval, a bit of this and a bit of... Yes, it's good to have all those influences, but if you never go deep on anything, you never really...
This is so right. And it's again, you know, I've done classes at conservatoires and people say, oh, how'd you do this? How'd you play in this style? I said, well, I spent a lot of time listening to it. And then I remember this. I went to one of the major conservatoires in London, and there's like 17 trumpet players sat in a semicircle. And I said, okay, who's listened to some music today? Nobody said a word. And then eventually it got to like, okay, this week. And then this guy put his hand up and he said, I said, what do you listen to? And he said, oh, Bruno Mars. And I said, well, that's fine. You listen to some music at least. Well, if you want to call it music, some Bruno Mars is quite good, I think, or quite nice.
For sure.
You know, Duke Ellington said there are only two types of music, good and bad. You know, it's up to the individual to work out what they think's good and what they think's bad. But, you know, music's, you know, any kind of music, to listen to it in its entirety. Again, you've already touched on the fact that now they're flooded with information and stuff that you can listen to. And yes, I had to go to a record shop and go, I'd like this record. It's out of print, or we're getting it in, or we'll order it for you. So it was like the waiting thing for it. Whereas now you just go bang, bang, bang on your phone like that, and you listen to 15 seconds of it, and then you're done.
You've made a judgment. I mean, it's even got so bad now that someone will send me a text with a link to something to listen to, and it's almost like it's so easy to click it that I won't click the link.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I won't. I almost want, they'll send it to me with some gravity in the message about how important it is to them.
Yeah.
And this is a me issue, not anything else. Like I'll look at it and I'll do that later, or I haven't. But the thing is, there are some sacred records that I have that were the same.
Yeah.
And if I was to, I had Andy Wood come over to my house the other day, one of the greatest brass players of all time.
Absolutely.
We're very good friends. And he's a legend. But I needed to get rid of a lot of my records because they were taking up too much space, and they weren't being used because my whole house is full of children's toys at the moment. They were just sitting in the shed, and I thought, who better to give them to than Andy? So he came through, and he was like, and a lot of them, he was like, got that. But the joy that Andy left the house with was really magical for me, because he really truly loves it, and it lives in him.
Yeah,
in a way.
And you can tell that he's listened to stuff properly, because I'll never forget the first time Andy came and sat next to me I was doing Saturday Night Fever at the Palladium.
Yes.
And Andy came in as a dep, and he was, this young guy who I'd never met from Birmingham, looked a lot different than he does now. He looks a lot better now, he's changed his life really, but I remember him coming in, and he went, at the end of his sit-in, he said, it kind of plays itself, this show, doesn't it? And I thought, don't mind me saying that, Andy, do you? And I thought, he sounds quite confident, Anyway, he came and depped, and it was an absolute joy. He followed me like a glove. It was so in tune. It was so placed so beautifully. It was just amazing. And I thought, that's why he said it plays itself. And I remember the regular player came back and said, how did he do then? Expecting me to go, oh, well, it was all right, And I said, he was brilliant. Just book him all the time.
Wow.
And that's why he's one of the busiest musicians, let alone brass musicians, that we've got. And anything you hear him play is just amazing. He plays like his life depends on it. He puts his heart and soul into everything he does.
And I know that as well, having produced records that he's played on. Anything I ask, it's a yes.
Yeah.
And and for no other reason than I just want to serve the music.
It's a joy for him, yeah.
I've also spoken to Andy about what goes through his head when he plays. And I'm going to ask you this now, because I don't think I've asked any of the other podcast guests this yet. Now, when we play a musical instrument, it obviously all happens in the present. And there are some thoughts that we have that we're aware of, and there are some thoughts that we try and control, and there are some thoughts that we aren't aware of. Most of it we're not aware of. It just happens at us.
Yeah.
And the more self-aware we are, the more we feel like we can control them. And I always play at my best. And I think this probably goes across the board for any instrument. When all I'm doing is running the tape machine of the part that I have to play, or the music that I have to play by ear or improvise, whatever it is. When I'm free from thought, free from judgment, and I'm simply singing it in my music, in my trumpet voice, and as I sing it, it comes out the bell.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself in that state a lot? Do you have anything that you do to get yourself into that state? And when maybe in your life, when there's been a physical thing, or I don't know, you're bruised or something like that, where like a verbal order cue has come into your mind that has distracted you from that thing. I know when I was speaking to Andy about it, he said, that's all I do. I just sing.
Yeah.
Is that your experience?
Yes. I'd say 99.9% of the time. Yeah. And even when I'm reading some music for the first time, say, you go into a studio and you've got to do something quickly, when the music's handed out, I'll be scanning through it, singing it in my head.
Yes.
It's a bit like, my dad said, sing me the tenor part. It's that's where I came from, and I've tried to maintain that. However, yeah, you're dead right that sometimes you might turn up at 10 o'clock in the morning, you were working late the night before, and your chops feel terrible, and you've got maybe they're bruised, or I suffer from cold sores. Maybe I've had a cold sore, my chops still haven't kind of settled down from that. And then this mechanism triggers where I go, right, okay, what's my quick fix for my chops to enable me then to just forget it and play. So, I would go into like my normal thing, which is to get my chops kind of going again. I'll do some note bends, or I'll do not necessarily pedal notes, but I'll do some note bends, and I always remember Wayne talking about this, playing your middle G and getting the old polishing cloth out and trying to make it sound good. And so again, really, I'm concentrating on what I need to change to make this come to life again, to get that sound. So then I suppose there's a mixture of that singing and a mixture of my knowledge of what is right for me to do to help enable that to happen.
Yeah.
So in that instance, but I'll only spend like 5 minutes doing that, and it won't be whilst I'm actually playing a piece of music or performing. It'll be in the warm-up.
Okay, so I'll give you an example of a situation that you have to solve. So you're in the studio and you're just on the back of a cold sore, maybe even still have one a little bit, and it's kind of in the back of your mind, and you to open the pad, and it's a you'd rather close the pad, right? Do you give yourself like a limited amount of time, kind of worrying, or limited amount of time fixing is a better way of saying it, and then you just go, okay, now it will be what it will be? And are you able to compartmentalize that time so that you can get into that singing state? Or do you just not think about what I'm talking about?
I don't really think about it. I might go, oh, Louis, you do this. And of course, I always remember Derek Watkins going like, well, I've done my lead. Here you are, if he was feeling a bit tired or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, I think I would... when we warm up, I always think, really, are we actually warming up, or are we just convincing ourselves that it's all right?
This is it.
It's like I pick my trumpet up. Trumpets are out in here all the time, and I pick my trumpet up and I just play a middle G. Maybe first thing in the morning. I might be going to do the show later on, and I go, oh, it's feeling okay today. So I then don't do a load of practice because I think, oh, it's feeling good, because there's that other thing of like, in that situation, you can start to do stuff and actually you end up making it worse.
Oh, huge, yeah. Psych yourself out as well, yeah.
Practice until you sound crap, which a lot of people do. And then the next time you come back to pick it up, that's where you're starting from. Instead of starting, oh, it was good. So I walk in here in the afternoon and maybe play a bit more than just a middle G. Feels great, and I'm starting from that place.
So do you find that it's a lot of it is, well, you want to build on a foundation of trust,
yes,
and belief that you can do it.
It's belief.
And okay, so it's like a feedback loop, right? The better it gets, and the more you believe, the more you can believe.
Yeah.
And then it goes up, but then it can also go down.
Yeah.
Are you quick at catching when you're heading into a negative feedback loop? And if you are, do you just put it away and just hope and just?
I try and
hope and pray.
No, it's not happening. This is whilst I'm working out, it's not happening. Sitting in that show as I am at the moment, there's quite often, it's like playing in a confined space and you're trying to get the sound. You might get set up a bit wrong with breath or with chops or whatever,
any number of things, yeah.
And harmonics start kind of pushing back towards the bell, and you can feel other sounds when you're not playing. You can feel it like the ear trumpet thing. It's hitting your lips, and so the chances of splitting notes, for me anyway, I find it's a lot easier to split notes. Do we dwell on that? I think last night there was like one stab which I did a little on, and probably nobody heard it out the front because it's probably way down in the mix. Hopefully they didn't hear it. But you have to sort of just go, well, forget that.
Yeah.
Here I am. The next bit's going to be better.
Yeah.
I used to say, well, I'm not the first person to split a note on the trumpet, and I won't be the last. There are some people that don't split as many as others.
Yeah.
But it's the nature of the game. We don't do it on purpose, do we?
No, it's just it's about probably the worst instrument for because not only is it easy to split something, but you put yourself in a position where it's so audible. Yeah,
exactly. But it's like, you're putting your head on the chopping block. That's it. Bang. Okay, yeah. Oh, God. But, you just look at my hair. See the colour of it? Every single one of those is a split note.
Brilliant.
But I've still got hair.
You haven't got any hair.
Yeah, well, maybe that's something else. I don't know.
Oh, man, that's amazing. Cool. So let's talk a bit about the seasons of your career. And maybe, I had a question that came up earlier that I wanted to ask you actually. Do you think you'll play until you can't play? I'm going to go into the seasons question in a minute.
Yes, I will. Not professionally.
So okay, cool. Yeah.
I think my head is in a place. I'm 61 now.
Yeah.
And I suppose I can say this on your podcast. I play the trumpet as good as I ever have done. And I said this to you earlier when we were having a chat before we started the podcast that, there's an element of me that's always thought I'm not actually that good on the trumpet. And so I'm trying to get better all the time. I'm striving for that, and I hear yourself and, other young, we're blessed really in the UK with this, what seems like an enormous scene of fantastic young trumpet players, whether it's in the classical world, in the commercial world, in the jazz world, there's, I'm not going to mention everybody, but, Tom Walsh, James Copus, these guys, they're incredible players. And I sort of say, right, well, I can't play like they can play. I
don't know, you got your thing.
But but then I always say to myself, and we have to have confidence in ourselves. So I say to myself, well, okay, maybe they can't do some of the things that I do, or I can do. And if we were all the same, it would be boring. It would be a boring place.
It's been a really brilliant revelation for me to recognise. We do one of these very strange things for a living. If you had a set of plumbers, they would all accept that they were in competition with each other.
Yeah,
they're all. Yeah, there's no joke, right?
Yeah.
And I purely mean professionally.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, because there's only so much work. There's only so many toilets that need fixing. Right, and there's a supply and demand issue. And I do think that there's because of the camaraderie in the nature of what we do, we pretend that there's no competition. Now, I don't. The revelation I've had recently is that there's no competition. There's competition for work in a professional sense.
Yeah.
But there's no competition between the people.
Yeah.
And that's because it's impossible. Because no one is as good at being Mike Lovatt as Mike Lovatt is. And no one is as good at being Louis Dowswell as Louis Dowswell is. As hard as they can possibly try. And it's sort of trumpet irrelevant.
Yes, yeah.
So if we separate the work element and that kind of competition that is inevitable with supply and demand, and when you bring money into it, then you've got this thing which people still don't really like to talk about for obvious reasons, that you can rest assured knowing that no one will ever be able to do the gifts that you've been afforded. And so when you accept that, then you're kind of free to just do the best version of you.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's talked about very much, particularly in the industry.
No, it's not. It's definitely not.
And everyone's focus is on either gigs or money, and I get it, it's expensive to live right now. But the irony of the whole conversation is that you will be best at what you do and give yourself the most chance in that competition, the more you rely on the fact that you're just the best person at being you.
Yeah.
And then accepting where you are.
Yeah.
Something like that, anyway.
I think what ties in with that is at certain stages in my playing life so far, there have been various people that have, in the profession, that have sort of underlined the fact that they think I'm okay on the trumpet, or they like what I do.
Yes.
So I've already mentioned Jesse Norman.
Yes.
Of course, back in probably the late 90s, early 2000s, this is the first time I met John Wilson, and he decided that I was going to be the sound of the John Wilson Orchestra because, like it or not, in an orchestra of that ilk, like the MGM Studio Orchestra, you know, the sound of Hollywood was you and Raisy.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is a you know, pretty bold thing to say, but I was a big sound of the John Wilson Orchestra.
For sure.
And John also heard my sound and thought, that's it, because he's got an amazing ear for sound. He decided that's what he wanted at that particular point. And then Jesse Norman was another one. So, you know, this is one of the greatest opera singers in the world who liked the sound that I made.
Yes.
I'm talking about sound all the time.
Yes.
And then more recently, in a different way, Seth MacFarlane, who, you know, got me to go out to LA and do gigs with him out there and had me playing lead on 10 albums or something like this, and even wrote on my solo album I did in 2018 with Foden's. He did a really nice little piece in the program notes for that album, and said some really nice things about me. So it's like a kind of validation that these people noticed this, and that's been food for me.
Okay.
You know, we do need food. It's like, Louis, you sound great, and if you're sitting next to me and you play great, I'll say that to you, because, and it's not because I'm thinking, oh well, maybe Louis will like me more if I say he sounds great.
Yes.
I say you sound great because that's what you sound like, and that doesn't always happen in our professional. There is camaraderie, but we don't actually tell each other. We're soon to talk about, oh, did you hear so and so? They messed that bit up or whatever. That's more. That happens a lot more often than saying to somebody, "You sound fantastic."
It's hard to say that.
Yeah,
it's really hard to be to genuinely mean that.
Yeah, but
it's just difficult. I think in general, people's openness to a compliment too. It's you a lot of the time you're concerned about how they might take it.
Yeah.
So you fear from saying it.
Yeah, and yeah, there's that, and you. It's in that respect, it's a very kind of lonely world.
Yeah, because you're left questioning whether what they said was what they meant.
Yeah,
which is as good as not saying it. So this is where the conversation comes back to the heart. You know, it's like if you have an antenna, a spiritual antenna, attuned to when someone's speaking from the heart, then you see, like validation. I used to struggle a lot with this myself because we talked about people that had done a lot of things when they were young. I'd done a lot of stuff when I was young, and then relying on that validation wasn't really enough, especially when kids came along. Because when kids came along, I felt as though in order to be validated on the trumpet, there's some other sacrifice that needed to happen, like, for example, being around my children. And so balancing that is crazy difficult. But I know what you mean. It feels good when someone says that you've done really well on the gig. But when you don't get that, then how do you keep that thing going that you've been talking about this whole podcast, which is that motivation?
Yes.
So like you must have something that you rely on or fall back on if you feel like you're in a low place with it, or how do you?
I suppose now I'm older.
Okay.
That is, well, you did that, you know, so you can play.
Yeah. Now this is going back to the belief thing.
Yeah, the belief. And I've always listened to everything or I've tried to listen to everything I've recorded. Yeah. Even if it's a crap little jingle or whatever it is, or, you know, if it's a big movie, I'll listen to that. And the reason I do that is not to sort of sit and go, oh, you played great on that. Most of the time I'm going, why did you play that like that?
Or the usual thing when we get back from the box, guys, you're dragging.
Yeah. Or that, you're not with a click, all that stuff. But actually, I do it to try and make sure that next time it's better.
Yeah.
But also you can use that occasionally. There's a few things that I've done. I go, okay, that's I'm proud of that.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's like hitting a drive down the fairway. Like if you hit a 280-yard drive down the fairway and it goes dead straight, you got to enjoy that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
And when it does happen, they're the moments of life to live with. So if you do play something well, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I flogged myself for years over that. And then there were a lot of things that I played that were really cool that I couldn't enjoy.
Yeah.
Because I felt like it was not acceptable to.
Yeah.
So it's okay. It's
yeah,
cool.
you just have to go, yeah, okay, it's fine.
Or another one would be, well, not going to get it that well again. So
Yeah.
might as well keep that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, when you've just played your 158th double high C. In fact, there was a session that I did for Cart Door Ice Cream.
Yeah.
And it was it's from an old Maynard track. Sway. You must know that thing. And anyway, they decided that it would be good for this Cart Door Ice Cream. And I remember there were like five...
Scream.
Yeah, exactly. I remember there was about 5 trumpets on it. I think Andy Greenwood was on it, Tom Reese Roberts, and maybe Craig Wilde. And any of those guys could have done the first trumpet part. But I was playing first trumpet part, being booked on first trumpet. And there was loads of double C's in it. And so like...
10 a.m.
I was like armed with these mouths, and it was a jingle, but it was a 2-hour jingle because they wanted to do all these different versions.
Yeah,
and even though it was like, the usual 60-second, 30-second, 20-second, all that kind of 10-second stuff, instead of just chopping the 60-second up, they wanted to do separate takes and different versions of. So I ended up doing this thing, and Andrew Greenwood said, "You must have played over 200 double C's in that."
Well, hopefully they got one.
But there was one that was all right. Yeah.
No, I know. I know what you mean. It's
and
crazy.
that's
awesome.
I would say that again here live on here that that's not my bag really, doing that kind of thing. You're if I turned up somewhere and you were there and I had a part with double C's on it, there's no way I'd play it. You'd do it.
Well, hopefully there would be one in there that day.
You're the guy. But that's the other thing about doing what we do, especially if there is a team of people there. It is like going like, okay, well, he's the guy for that.
Yeah, there's a team. Yeah,
and that's how you work that out. And as I was coming up through the business, it was very much not like that. It was more like, okay, that's so-and-so, they're the lead trumpet player, you sit on third or whatever. And I didn't very often sit on fourth because occasionally I did. But again, if there was like Ronnie Hughes always said this when he was chatting to Manny Klein. Ronnie and Manny met in a lift in a hotel in Japan. And Manny Klein was doing a gig with Henry Mancini's band, and Ronnie was doing something else with another band. It was some festival in Japan, and the lift doors open, and there's this little Jewish fella there, and it's Manny Klein, and Ronnie goes, "Are you Manny Klein?" And Manny goes, "Yeah." And Ronnie said, "I'm Ronnie Hughes from England, a trumpet player." And they went off and were chatting for ages, and Manny became big mates with Ronnie, and even so, Ronnie took him down to a family wedding down in South Wales, and they went in this little mining village into this bar, and as they walked in, it all went quiet, because it's like, who are these two fellas? And then there is Manny and his, and his jacket and his cravat and his tie, and he pulled a cigar out of his top pocket, and the wrapper said Manny Klein. Now, I suppose in those days you knew if you made it if you had a cigar with your own name on down the side. Probably a bit like Arturo.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's only one trumpet player left today.
Yeah.
He still has cigars with his name on it. Yeah. Amazing. That's great. Well, I was going to ask you a question. We got into some of the weeds there, which was great. I was going to ask you a question on the seasons of your career. But maybe wrapping into that, we can talk a little bit about what the trumpet has taught you about you, if the trumpet has taught you anything about other things in life, maybe being, I'm a young father, if there are any other young father trumpet players out there that could be given some advice, whether the trumpet has helped with that side of life, I don't know, it's a kind of random question in a way, but that I've heard recently that the trumpet is the mirror of the mind.
Right.
And, that's, I think it's a Bill Adam.
Oh, right. There's something he said, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it makes complete sense. And I just wondered if there's any wisdom that you had learnt as a trumpet player that you've taken across your life, and maybe you can go into some of the seasons of your career with that.
Yeah. First of all, with that, what I've taken from the trumpet, I think, is respect.
Okay.
It's the trumpet is something that we have to respect, and also respecting ourselves with what we do, because it is walking on a knife edge.
Oh, yeah.
And we can tip off either way. And so I don't take for granted when I put my trumpet in its bag and I walk out the door and go off to go and do some work somewhere, or to go and do a gig or whatever it is. I never take that for granted. And when I walk through the doors of Abbey Road Studios or the Royal Albert Hall or a tiny village hall in Norfolk to do a little gig, I never sort of go, I never take that for granted, any of it, because I always think I'm really lucky to be in that situation.
Yeah.
And so I suppose taking something with when my kids were young, they saw the life that, you know what it's like when you've got young kids. You've got to work like mad to kind of, keep them in everything, keep everything going, keep your house going, the mortgage, food for kids, and all the stuff kids need when they're young, to give them the best chance in life. So you work really hard, and that can limit the amount of time that you have with them. But I always try to get them engaged with stuff that I was doing. So
yeah.
I would always, if I was practicing, I'd get them and just play a little thing for them or whatever, connected to the practice I was doing. Or I'd get them to come to a gig, even when they were really young,
Yeah.
Or I'd take them to other gigs so they'd see other musicians playing, so they'd know that they didn't have a weird dad that played the trumpet, and that other kids had parents that played
also strange parents.
I mean, Anne's a violinist as well, so both their parents had this weird time, and then, I mean, Anne, when she got into doing quite a few West End shows, and she was like doing lead for a Vita that was a few years back, and during that time, like we had kids like 6 and 3, and Anne decided that she wanted to do another degree at the same time, so she did a degree. She did a BSc in homeopathy, which she now divides some of it, a lot of her time into that area, which has been amazing for me as well with teaching and stuff. That's a whole other subject. But, during that time, we were still trying to balance this, both working, both going out to do maybe a West End show, or, going off to do a gig or a session or whatever. And that was hard. But our kids got to realise that was the norm. And they respected that. That's what enabled them to have, the latest Scale Electric set or whatever was for Christmas, And so the word I would use is respect with the trumpet. And I still respect the trumpet. And I look at it, there's 2 trumpets there on the stand. I look at them and I think, right, I'm in charge of you, but I respect you. And you're nothing without me blowing down it.
Yeah.
And that's the relation I've got with it. I don't know whether you can remember really that because I was very fortunate that you came and had, when you were very young, you came and had a bit of time with me here, as we touched on at the beginning of this, and then later on when you were at the Royal Academy of Music, and I carry that through into my teaching as well, because actually I respect that we all have to pass this along, because this is a thing that we're very lucky to have been given the chance to do and to be part of. And, I was lucky enough to work with people that I want to tell you about. And I want to tell all the people who are listening and watching this podcast that we have to pass this stuff down the line. This is how we keep, it's like, how we keep recreating, you know,
Yeah.
and pushing the thing forwards. And, you know, there were some incredible players. They had totally different backgrounds to I had, or again, different background that you've had, all the different generations of trumpet players. But this whole kind of school and this whole, it's like cathedral choirs. Brass playing in the UK is, you know, from the brass band movement right through. It's something unique to the UK.
Definitely.
Yeah, actually, Seth MacFarlane touched on this. He said, "What is it about this tiny island of yours that produces all these brass players?" And I said, "Well, it's the brass band school. It's the brass band world that controls it. Because even if you didn't play in a brass band, you're
Influenced by
you're
people who did,
influenced by people who did. Look, you know, we've already mentioned Derek Watkins. You know, amazing. Kenny Baker. All these guys. They all played in brass bands. But I'm gone off the rails a bit now. I can't remember.
It's all good. I was
what we
just
were
asking.
talking about.
You nailed the question completely. I'll tell you what. We'll move to a lighter subject and probably finish up after this. But what have you? So you're doing Great Gatsby now. It's
Yeah.
finishing in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You've got some other projects that you're doing at the moment that are under your name, and you have a future career ahead of you. What are you aiming at, and what with what you're aiming at in mind, what do you think is going to happen, and what have you got in mind, basically?
Okay, so
Because we don't know what the future holds,
no,
right? Which is why
exactly.
I asked what you're aiming at.
What I'm aiming for is to maintain my playing standard and the way that I approach playing. I want to try and keep the love going of what I do. I don't want to get. I've seen older players that get very bitter about everything. I don't want to be like that. I want to enjoy and keep that feeling that I'm still 12 years old playing the trumpet. But hopefully a bit better than I was when I was 12, and keep that going for the as long as I can. And I'm in the situation now where hopefully I can do the things that I really want to do.
What's that?
So we've got this. This is my bit of advertising here, which is a band called Mike Lovatt's Brass Pack.
Yeah.
And the reason for the word brass pack and the name brass pack is that Lovatt is actually a French word, louvet, which means wolf cub or little wolf.
Nice.
So I'm trying to get this, and I've been reasonably successful so far. I think we've done 5 gigs now. It's a 25-piece ensemble, so it's
Huge.
a lot of people to do. It takes up a lot of money, hence me doing stuff like The Great Gatsby, which is helps me to pay for this, really. And last year we were very lucky to do a live gig where we had World of Brass, who recorded it for a live album, which has now come out. It's available on my website. And it's hopefully there's going to be a video of that concert coming out soon on the World of Brass site.
Brilliant.
And so we've got plans for that for the future. I'm very fortunate to have an amazing team with me. So Colin Skinner, who you know Colin, is a fantastic saxophone player, multi-woodwind instrumentalist, but also he's an incredible writer of really the real craftsman at what he does. I don't know if you've heard any of the brass back stuff, but he's a modern day kind of Billy May-esque, but he's got his own thing going, and he's composing stuff now. He's writing some very exciting things going on for him. So that's the brass pack. We're trying to get it obviously further out there. We've got ideas for new concerts. We're going to do maybe we can get Millie involved in this. We're going to do an opera swings program.
Wow.
Because
our
initial thing was we did a Carmen suite, which Colin actually arranged. I had a few of the original Big Fat Brass charts, which Andrew Cotty had transcribed, and Andrew used to transcribe for John Wilson as well. Amazing transcriber, amazing composer himself. So I had these. We only had 8 numbers, and I wanted to do a concert it was actually at the Royal College. So I said, Colin, I could do with some new numbers, really. Do you fancy writing something in the kind of Billy May Big Fat Brass lineup? So harp and 4 French horns and 6 trumpets and 4 trombones, 2 tubas, percussion, the lot. He said, oh, yeah, he said, I've done a sketch for a Carmen suite, but it's for big band, but I'll do it for... So he did. So we did it, and I did it a few places, a few of the conservatoires. I did it at the Academy, I think. I don't know whether you played in that. We did it at the Academy, and then...
A bit after my time, I think.
I did it at Guildhall as well. And anyway, so it got to the lockdown, like a lot of people were doing. I thought, I'm going to try my chops at putting something together.
Yeah.
So I sent off this pretty crappy click track to Lawrence Unglis to put the bass line down, and bless him, he put this amazing bass. He had nothing to play with apart from a click. And bearing in mind, it's a suite.
Yeah.
So he did it all on his Todd, and I thought, I hope it's in tune. And of course, it was bang in tune. And then I recorded 6 trumpet parts on there, and then I sent them off to various people so they could minus their part. Actually, I sent it to Matt Skelton first, and he put the drums down so that everybody got something to play with. And so when Matt put the drums down, he had something to play with as well.
Yeah. I know that process. Yeah. It's difficult to know which way to go.
And Anne kept coming in, and she was going like, so what have you got down now? You know, it was like gradually building it up, and then horn players that had recorded like on iPhones and stuff like that. But it's out there on YouTube with amazing graphics that Derek Lawton's put together. Derek Lawton does all this design. He's an incredible designer. So that's how the Brass Pack started, and we've played Sellout at Perth Festival, Harrogate Festival, and Snape Festivals as well. And we went back to Perth and Harrogate this year. Hopefully next year there's going to be more. We're just about to start a new kind of campaign to try and get some gigs, because it's a big thing. And the other exciting thing about that is, and this comes back to my dad really and my childhood, is we've started up this new kind of arm of this called the Brass Cubs. So in Perth we did a morning workshop where 30 Scottish school children all came in with their brass instruments. Colin has written some bespoke charts for them to play. And so they did a little pre-concert for the audience. Then they went into the audience. We did, the Brass Pack did our gig. And then at the end of the gig, they all came on the stage and we did like a Brass Pack massive with the Cubs and everything. And you should have seen their faces when, like, you know, they were stood amongst like... with Tom Walsh and Tom Gordon was on drums, and there was a young drummer there as well. And that's for me, that's like it's almost coming full circle, you know. And this is the way. Hopefully, I'm going to move forwards with the future to try and pass this on. And you know, we've got to do something about children getting music for free, for one, and also getting it at a young enough age to grab them, because you know we've all had this.
It's hard these days.
Yeah, and it's really hard, and because there's so many distractions, and there's so much lack of investment in what's considered to be so important, which isn't considered to be so important and should be. You know, look at all the mental health problems we've got with teenagers and stuff, especially through COVID. That came rife, and you know, music would be able to alleviate half of that just like that.
Even if it's just attention on something that's delayed gratification.
Yeah.
You know, to get good at music and to play it well, you have to put some work in.
Yeah.
And people seem to want things without work, but that's for a whole other podcast.
It is. There's one other thing that I'm doing exciting next month, end of September. I'm actually getting to record my second solo album.
Oh, great.
With Foden's band again. But this time we're adding the harp, because there's an amazing harpist who plays in the RTE concert orchestra in Dublin called Geraldine O'Doherty. You might have worked with her. She's fabulous. And I just love the sound of the harp with brass. It might sound like, okay, harp with a brass. You get the harmonic sense of it. You get the rhythmic sense of it. And you get that percussive effect as well. And you get all those things. And it kind of knits instruments together. I just love it. So she's going to play.
That's great.
I've got, you know, one of the greatest brass players we've ever had one of the greatest trombonists in the world, Gordon Campbell's going to do a solo with me. We're going to do a duet on there. So Gordon's going to come and play, and I've even tempted Colin, who's doing all the arrangements again, into playing the alto sax. And we're actually recording that number that I said earlier on, the Two for a Seesaw, the Previn piece. So Colin's going to do the Ronnie Lang bit, and Gordon's going to do Dick Nash, and I'm doing the Ewan Raisey solo. But that's for an orchestra, but Colin's brilliant at getting this orchestral texture out of, Foden's one of the greatest bands in the world. So things are still going in a nice place, and I'm looking forward to having a bit more time to think about more projects, spend some more time on trying to get the brass back going, and hopefully still work with fantastic players like you.
Well, me too. It's going to be good. All right, Mike. Thank you so much. I've absolutely loved this conversation.
It's been really nice. Thanks so much for coming around and having this chat.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Cheers, Mike.
Cheers, Louis.